we have Margot Bennett with Women Against Gun Violence. And Margot, I'm going to read your profile. And then after I read your profile, I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about you and what we should know about your call to action in the work that you do. And then I'll, again, you'll share your words with us about voting. So for more than 27 years, Women Against Violence has mobilized communities to take decision action against the danger of firearms. We advocate for more meaningful gun regulations and educate the public with our policy makers about the human, financial, and public health consequences of America's gun violence epidemic. So Margot, I'm going to open the floor and welcome, and we're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I have to say, this has become a very emotional morning for me. And you could hear it in my voice because I'm almost 70 and I've lived through so much of what Caroline spoke about. And this is just really breaking my heart because I thought we had made so much progress, but I could see in the last 4 years really how little we've made. I also want to say that I'm also old enough to remember when we didn't know election results the evening of the election. And that's really a media creation. That's a creation of the 24-hour media competing to call races early and who could beat whom. And so it's important for people to know that knowing the results of our elections that night is a recent development and not a reflection at all on the accuracy of our elections. And so, and now, Dina, I want to say to you, I'm going to read. So I want to tell you that Women Against Gun Violence was founded almost 30 years ago by the great feminist Betty Friedan and Anne Rice Lane, who was the first female president of the Los Angeles Fire Commission and a former police commissioner with the LA Police Department. So certainly both groundbreaking women. And at the time we were founded, gun manufacturers were deliberately targeting women as potential purchasers, much like cigarette manufacturers targeted women with their Virginia Slims campaign. Betty and Ann knew that women could make change happen, so they founded Women Against Gun Violence and rallied women in LA to transform the narrative. And so from that first decision to now, we have rallied women and men to make much needed change in our communities through program work and definitely through legislative action. There are so many reasons to vote, always, and particularly this year. Equality, immigration, choice, healthcare, justice, the environment, and voting rights. And also right up there is gun regulation. And the National Rifle Association knows that. And we know they know it because they've donated millions of dollars to support the election and re-election of the current federal administration. We're just days away from October and the start of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Almost 2,000 women were murdered by men in 2018, and the most common weapon used was a gun. And then a study from the Violence Policy Center also found that nationwide, 92% of women were killed, murdered by men they knew. The number of females shot and killed by their husband or intimate acquaintance was 4 times the total number murdered by male strangers using all weapons combined. So when the gun lobby, gun enthusiasts, and the NRA, which is really the advertising agency for gun manufacturers, tell you as women that you need to carry a gun with you to protect yourself against outside attackers and invading hordes, they're lying. They have the same data we have. They just don't care. Your safety and your life matters less to them than the money they can put in their pockets. But there are ways to reduce these startling statistics. We can elect a Congress that will renew the Violence Against Women Act and reduce the number of guns in the hands of abusers through both state and federal legislation. We know that we are not going to get strong and effective legislation that protects women and that regulates guns from our current federal administration. And with the appointment of judges on all levels of the judiciary and the appointment of a new Supreme Court judge, current gun regulations are under attack and may not hold. For example, recently a Trump-appointed circuit judge ruling against precedent set by other circuit courts, ruled that California's ban on high-capacity magazines, and those are the magazines that allow mass shooters to murder many, many people in just seconds. That Trump appointee found that that ban was a violation of the Second Amendment. Other laws are also under attack, such as California's requirement that ammunition purchasers must also be licensed. So that's why one of our front burner programs is Ballots Stop Bullets. For real and lasting change, we must all vote in all elections, local, state, and federal. We must impact the legislatures that will write and pass the laws we need, and we must impact the courts who will most likely review the legislation after the NRA sues us on grounds that the laws violate the Second Amendment. We work with the League of Women Voters closely to train registrars, and then we target our efforts towards registering young first-time voters. Prior to the pandemic, we registered at schools and shopping malls and at rallies and at concerts. But with the pandemic, we're focusing on online efforts and strongly support the network NBC, their website, Plan Your Vote.
Margot, can I jump in? Because there's a really hot question that came in from the chat that I want to make sure that we address while we have your window of time.
Sure.
The question that came in is, how do we speak to people who are passionate about the Second Amendment?
If they're passionate about the Second Amendment, you can't speak to them and you should save your energy. I mean, that's like saying, I'm passionate about my vacuum cleaner. You know, I'm passionate about guns, except that guns kill people. Yeah. People with guns kill people. If somebody is passionate about the Second Amendment and doesn't see the need for common sense regulations, common sense, then don't waste your time.
Yeah. So would you say then that the opportunity is to really, I guess, to seek those people who have, you know, the understanding of common sense regulation versus trying to flip someone who's just on the other side completely, like, this is my, you know, it's
right.
Yeah. But to really seek out those who have, I guess what I would say, a listening ear, right?
Right. So we're a 501c3, so we can't endorse candidates. We only endorse philosophies. We have gun owners on our board of directors.
Awesome.
So it doesn't mean that you can't speak to gun owners, but there's a difference between somebody who believes in the Second Amendment at all costs, believe that protecting guns is more important than protecting women, children, communities. You know, somebody who's crossed that line, I say save your energy and make sure that you vote and that you reach out to people, including gun owners, that realize that guns are dangerous and that there needs to be some common sense legislation. You're not going to be able to say to a Second Amendment enthusiast, we're not interested in taking away your guns. They're just not going to believe you.
There's another question that came in from the chat. Let me ask you, and you have about 2 more minutes. Can you
Okay.
elaborate on what the Violence Against Women Act is?
Not with great authority,
Yes.
but it did include some regulations that protects women from violence through a set of laws that prosecute our attackers.
Yes.
And it's been allowed to lapse. It was always a bipartisan issue until recently.
Yes.
I do want to say, in my last few minutes, I want to do a big plug for the census.
Yes.
Because we have a few more days to complete the census.
Margot, actually, just I will interject really quick. It was actually, I believe, a federal judge in Florida found that it was illegal and extended it for an additional month. So we actually have 1 more month of the census. But please.
Right. Well, and I'm always concerned that the federal government is going to appeal those rulings, right? So, yeah. And then the courts will issue a stay and we'll be stuck. So the thing is, if we complete the census, that governs how much money we get from the federal government, money that we provide the federal government, how much we get back, but it also determines the number of representatives we get in the House of Representatives, thereby giving us more people to vote for, right? So it's so important to take the census, complete it. It's supposed to be private. And I just think it's a critical part of the package. Yes. Voting and the census, they go together. They go together hand in hand.
The one thing I will add about the census, just if the numbers help, it's $2,000 a year for the next 10 years. So it's about $20,000 per person that comes back to the community because you were counted. So this is why it is also so important on top of representation, accuracy of representation, because that's really what it is making sure that we have the accurate numbers to be represented, but then also the resources are coming back home to support our schools and all the other services that we get. Margot, the one last thing I wanted to add, I know where you started, you said, it's very emotional, and politics, this game we're in, I would say is so emotional. But I want to share this. I think after 2016, a lot of us went into a total slump and a possible depression. I think my friends were calling and checking in on me. Are you okay? Are you okay? Because, for example, I was monitoring the hate crimes that were happening across the US, and in 3 days, there was about 60 hate crimes that included in middle schools and elementaries and just all over the country. And while it was, just only with, I would say, 18 years compared to some of the leaders on these calls. But I would also say the audience on this group chat that are from teens to so many years beyond, that we represent a spectrum that we get to acknowledge, that we're in the process. And I was very heartbroken because I also thought we were in a different place and came to realize we weren't. And it also gave it gave me new information. It gave all of us new information as to where we get to go. So, we're like, Obama, yes, we're here. And then we're like, I guess we're not. We didn't know, there was such deep-seated feelings still in this country. So I understand what you're saying, and that feeling, that hurt. And I will say that that's also why it's so important that I appreciate you still being in the fight. We're still in the fight because, we're constantly getting the information as a country and I would say as leaders, where we get to go. So thank you so much, Margot.
Thank you, Dina.
Yeah.